Hi everyone, this is Mary Deatherage with Stamps and Lingers, and I'm here today to show you how to make a very simple fun fold card called a side fold. So let us get started. This is very simple. What I like about it is that it lets you have an opportunity to do some square designing, but it also fits inside a regular medium envelope. So as you can see, it just has a fold, a second fold, so that you get a square opening, and it's really simple. So let's go ahead and get started. I've started with a piece of cardstock. The base is 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and using my scoreboard, I'm going to just score at 5 1/2 along the long side, 5 1/2, and again at 6 3/4. And that is all the additional scoring and folding that we have to do. So I will fold at the 5 1/2 line and give that a little burnish. And then going the other direction, I'll fold at the 6 3/4 line. So you can see I've already created the fold very simply, just like that. So I am going to then add some Stamp and Seal Plus adhesive here. You could use tear and tape if you prefer, but the Stamp and Seal Plus is certainly strong enough. So I'm just going to put that on this 1 1/4 inch portion right there, like that. And then just fold it over so that it is lined up on both edges, and give that a good rub. And that is the extent of the fun fold. You can then decorate it as you like. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to go ahead and decorate this card. I have some Cherry Cobbler cardstock for mats and Plaid Tidings DSP from Stampin' Up! For the decoration. And then I've used the Peaceful Boughs stamp set and several die cuts from Beautiful Boughs, which I have already done a whole bunch of cutting for you. So that will be very easy for you. And the dimensions are all in the written portion of the tutorial. Before we go ahead and start matting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small punch, and you can use whatever you have that works. If you've got a small circle punch, that would work too. But I'm using the classic label punch, and I'm just going to stick the end of it into the card, and I'm really eyeballing the distance from here to here to kind of center it. And then I'm just going to cut a little notch, and that is going to give me a place to hold my piece of ribbon so that it doesn't go all over the place. The hardest part, of course, is, the spatial screw up there. And we'll just do the other side, again lining it up as close to the center as I can. And there we go. And so I have 2 notches ready to hold my ribbon. So I will now mat a 7/8 inch wide by 3 7/8 inch long piece of DSP on a piece of Cherry Cobbler cardstock. And I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue. And that cardstock is 1 inch wide by 4 inches long, and it's going to go on the small piece of the card front. Okay, and then I have the same DSP at 3 7/8 inch square, and I'm going to mat it on Cherry Cobbler, which is 4 by 4. Okay, and again with the liquid glue, you can use whatever adhesive makes you happy. And we'll put that on like that. Now I'm going to adhere this to the card front, both of these pieces to the card front, and then we can do the fun part, which is decorating. First you make your cake, and then you decorate it. Okay, so we're just gonna square that up, make it even on all sides, and we'll do the same with this smaller piece. Really easy fun fold, lots of fun to do. Guess that's why we call it a fun fold. Yeah. All right, so that is squared there, like so. Whoops. Come back here. Come back here. Okay. We'll let that just sit and dry for a second while we line everything else up. Okay, I have some gold trim here. You can use whatever you like. And I'm going to wrap it around my this little short piece a couple of times. And the way I do this, because I'm a little bow challenged, so I'm using a glue dot and I'm putting it right in the center, and then I'm going to stick the end of my trim in there and wrap it around twice like so, and then bring it back and cut it to length, and then adhere it with that glue dot. Now we're fixing to cover that up in just a few minutes with a bow, so you don't need to worry about that being weird. I'm just going to tie this bow like so, and we'll cut it off and it'll be ready to adhere. I'm going to decorate the card front before I put this on, just so that it's out of my way, okay? But what it's going to do is go right there, just like that. Okay, so I have done a little bit of die cutting ahead here. I have used the Beautiful Boughs die set, and I've cut the large bough from Mossy Meadow, and it's going to lay like so. Then I cut 2 of the medium boughs from Old Olive, and I will lay them down first, just like that, using liquid glue. Now here's a little tip for this. I like to allow my die cuts to extend over the edge of the mat, just because I like how that looks. But you do want to be careful that you don't interfere with that fold right there, or you'll end up you'll have a little problem with your die cuts, okay? Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue here and adhere that. Again, letting it kind of overlap, but making sure that this side does not impinge on that score and fold line right there. Okay. And then we'll do the same with this piece. Like so. All right. Perfect. Okay, let's set that aside. I'm going to get this out of the way. I have a sentiment from the Peaceful Boughs set, Season's Greetings, and I am going to stamp that on a piece of Whisper White that I have already cut out. This is the larger label die in Beautiful Boughs, and I'm going to stamp that in Early Espresso. And I'm going to go right down here in kind of the bottom corner, like so. Oop, just like that. All right, now I'm going to take a few Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to add that in just a second to our card front. So let me put some dimensionals on here. Don't need a whole bunch. I usually use more than I need, but you can do how it makes you happy. Just undo those covers. Like so, and adhere that, just pop it onto the front like that. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I have a gold hoop, and I'm going to adhere it with a couple of glue dots just like this, and I know that I'm going to be layering some pine cones over the top and another couple of boughs, so when you're doing this, be sure you hide your glue dots. I also like, when I'm using these gold hoops, to use 2 glue dots at least, because otherwise you can get some real twisting of the hoop, and that's never good. Nobody wants their hoops twisted. All right, so we'll grab that glue dot, and I'm just going to raise this up and stick it under there. But then it's going to flop off like that because I'm videotaping. There we go. Okay, so it's hooked down now. And now all I have to do is, first let me go ahead and adhere these. What I have is I've made a couple of little pine cones, and I cut 2 solid pine cones out of the darkest of the brushed metallic cardstock from Stampin' Up. This is a copper or kind of a rubbed bronze, so you can use whatever your equivalent is. And I've cut 2 of the detailed pine cones from Early Espresso. And I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue. You don't want to get too busy with it or it'll go everywhere. Ask me how I know. Okay. And we'll just adhere that over the top. And that gives just a little bit of a kind of rusticy shimmer, which I like a lot. And we'll go ahead and put the little one together. Okay. Now while those get set up a little bit, got a little busy with that one, didn't I? Yeah. Stick on there now. There we go. It'll be fine. It's going to do its thing here in just a second. Okay, now I'm going to take a few dimensionals and adhere these other two boughs to the card front. And here's a little tip. When you are trying to adhere over the top of already sticky uppy things, I like to actually stick my dimensionals to the card instead of to the dies. Now, normally you'd think, oh my goodness, that's terrible because it's going to show. And it would, except that once I get this adhered, I'm going to add the pine cones on top. So all that's going to do is adhere these boughs and then be covered by the pine cones. So it will be all good. It'll be all good. Oops, I don't need that dimensional cover. Obviously you can decorate this however you would like, but this is my version for Christmas. And we'll get that on like that. And I kind of don't want that bough stem to go much past the hoop so that I can cover it nicely. And now I'm going to, I'm actually going to add another dimensional. I'm going to add it right here by the hoop to catch this pine cone, and then I'm going to add a little bit of glue on the top of this bough. That will all, we should probably take that cover off. Okay, so we'll just adhere this like so. And then I'm going to do really the same thing. This has enough to cover it, so I don't need another dimensional. I'll just put a little bit of glue on that bough and then set it just like so. Okay, now I'll set that aside, and I'm going to make a quick double loop bow out of linen thread. And this is how you do this. You take your linen thread, hold it between your thumb and your forefinger, wrap 4 times around 4 fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then wrap 4 times around 2 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then cut with a little bit of a tail. Pull your loops off, and you'll see you have 2 loops, one large and one small. Then just push the 2 ends together, or the 2 edges together like that, and give a twist so that you've created a figure 8. Just like that. Now I use a reverse tweezers as kind of a third hand to squeeze those together. Then you can cut another piece of the linen thread and tie just a knot around it. So just do an overhand knot and then another overhand knot. And then we're going to play with it a little bit. We're going to try to make it look a little bit like Farrah Fawcett's hair. Hopefully you know who Farrah Fawcett was. She always had hair that I wanted. Never did achieve it. But that's what you do with a double loop bow, is you just kind of play with it until it spreads out and it looks perfectly casually mussed up, but you know that you made it be how you wanted it to be. Okay, so we have it all spread out like that. And then I'm going to pull this back, and using a glue dot, I will find a glue dot on my glue dot roll. Here we go. And I'm going to adhere it right about there. Okay, right about there. Just like that. All right. Just like that. Okay, now let's go back to that bow that I made earlier from the same trim. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue right over the top of that other glue dot. And I'm going to adhere this down, and then I'm going to work on the inner liner while that kind of dries. Okay? You can also use a glue dot there, but it's a little harder to get it to not be sticky. Does that make sense? It's a little hard to get it small enough. If you want to try that, you can. But if you just let it set for a minute on that glue, you'll be fine. So I'm going to let that set aside for just a second, and then we're going to decorate the inside. So I've got a piece of Whisper White that's 3 7/8 by 3 7/8, and I'm going to stamp my second sentiment from Peaceful Boughs. Oops. Again in early espresso, and I'm going to do right in the middle and as straight as I can make it without a micrometer, which may not be very straight. I'm going to take that mat away because that's just confusing the issue. And I'm just lining my cardstock up with my grid paper just to give myself a few extra visual looks. And then we'll just stamp like that. Hold it a beat, don't rock. And good. I'll take it. Now I'm going to take the single bough image from Peaceful Boughs, and I'm going to ink it in Old Olive. And I'm going to stamp it off twice on my scrap paper, like that, and then go right over the top with that third dimensional ink. Alrighty. Now we'll use a little liquid glue to adhere this to a cherry cobbler mat, like so. And then into our card base. Oh, that would be the finished one. Let's put it in one that doesn't have a card base, an inner liner already. How about that? Let's do that. There we go. Alrighty. Love the cherry cobbler with the early espresso and the mossy meadow and the old olive. Okay, perfect. We'll take that. Now, just to finish everything off, I'm going to make sure that's adhered. It's not really dry yet, but it will be. It will be. I'm going to take some gold glitter enamel dots and put them around here and there on my card front. Use a medium one on the sentiment. A couple more, just because I can. All right. Another one. Pick up, pick up, pick up. Goodness gracious sakes alive. Y'all know the saying, the perversity of an inanimate object. That's what happens. Okay. It just didn't want to come off of there, by golly. Put another one down here. Rule odd numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there you go. There's our card. Now, just because I like to do it, and you're still here, I hope. If you're not, that's fine too. I'm going to decorate my envelope, and I'm just going to take that single bough again. I'm going to stamp the front of my Whisper White envelope with first generation Old Olive. First generation meaning I'm not stamping it off before I stamp it. And then I'm going to take a piece of the Plaid Tidings DSP and decorate my envelope flap. Using a little liquid glue, just take a little bit of a line around here, around the edge. You don't need a lot. And we'll adhere this, just like so. Give it a little bit of a rub. And trim off that excess. Just like that. Alright, so this is a super easy fun fold. I hope you'll give it a try and then post it in the gallery for side fold cards. And I hope you'll make a few of your own. There we go. Thank you so much. Bye.